I'm joined by Senator Brian Schatz of the great state of Hawaii. Welcome, Senator.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just get right into it. Your overall impressions of this first week. You've been very outspoken. Want to hear what you think, though, now that the week's over.
Well, it was exactly as expected, which is different from being chill about it. Look, most of these things were decided on election night. These were all of the things that he promised to do. He promised cruelty towards immigrants. He promised most of these executive orders, and he followed through on them. Some of them sort of don't have the force of law. It's just sort of like, I'm directing my departments to explore all authorities to do X, which sort of could have been a press release. But some of them have real impact and real harm almost immediately. There's a hiring freeze at FEMA, a freeze in cancer research. Obviously, the immigration raids are already underway. They were in court arguing not just that birthright citizenship, which is plainly in the Constitution, should be eliminated, but the United States government made an argument that tribal members are not United States citizens. So it was just as crazy as I think we could have expected. And Democrats are finding their footing here. And I think the balance here is to look, I think everybody understands that if you're freaking out about everything, that it's very hard for people who have other things to do to keep track of what's like genuinely a big deal. But I think Pete Hegseth is genuinely a big deal. I think RFK Jr. is genuinely a big deal. I think Kash Patel running the FBI is quite terrifying. And so, my view is we should pick our spots, but that is different from rolling over. The reason you pick your spots is so you can win a few. And I think we have to collect our strength and focus on a couple of winnable battles every week and try to notch up a few wins. And when we do lose, at least make it a political loser for the other side.
What do you say to the American people, though, who are wondering, when are we going to hear about lower prices, making housing more affordable, all of the things that he said he was going to do? Those seem to be absent from the executive orders.
Yeah, there's nothing in any of those executive orders that reduce prices for anybody. And I think that that's one of the things that we're going to have to sort of lay down and keep talking about, not just for weeks, but for months. And just a little inside baseball, the kind of rhythm of the Senate is the first vote of the week is 5:30 on a Monday. The last vote is usually Thursday afternoon. And so we talk about one thing from 5:30 on Monday till sometime on Thursday. And then next week is like we're talking about something new. One of the things that Cory Booker and Tina Smith and others and I are trying to change is to make sure we're talking about the same thing every week, week after week, and filling the void, I think, that we've had on social media in particular. So yes, we're going to have to comment on whatever crazy thing Trump is proposing or doing. Yes, of course, as nominations come up, we can't always pivot to the price of eggs, but the drumbeat below all of that has to be not just that prices aren't going down, but specifically that the policy of the Trump administration and congressional Republicans is to rip regular people off, right? And transfer wealth from regular working people, from the elderly, from students, from the disabled, from Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, Social Security, all of that, to cut all those programs, to cut all of those benefits, and take the money saved and shove it to the wealthiest corporations and the wealthiest individuals that have ever walked this planet. So on some level, we want to keep it extremely simple, which is, hey, they're ripping you off.
You mentioned the hiring freeze across government agencies, including health agencies, a communications blackout, I think to communicate important things like things on the avian flu, research that's being done, statistics that are happening. And now you have RFK Jr., you've got his confirmation hearing that's set, someone who is spent his career attacking modern medicine and things that have saved lives. Let me just show you this clip. And I know you've been very outspoken on RFK, but here he is when he was running for office, calling for an 8-year ban or moratorium on all research on drug development and infectious disease research. Here, let's play this clip.
I'm going to go to NIH. My first week. And I'm going to call all the division heads and I'm going to call all the bureau chiefs. And I'm going to say, we're going to give drug development and infectious disease a break, a little bit of a break for about 8 years. And we're going to study chronic disease.
Senator, how dangerous is that?
I mean, he's extraordinarily dangerous. And, you might not know this about me, but my dad, may his memory be a blessing, was a physician all his life. And he was the first doctor to publicly oppose the Tuskegee experiments on African-American men. And for those listeners and watchers that don't remember all of that, the Tuskegee experiments were essentially that the United States Public Health Service knew that penicillin cured syphilis, but they allowed the U.S. Public Health Service to withhold penicillin, life-saving medicine, from African-American men in particular to quote unquote observe the disease process, right? So they let these people get sick for the purpose of medical research. I'm super proud of my dad for understanding and being the only one at the time for understanding how deeply evil that is. There's new reporting about the Samoa situation where he flew across the planet, caused a disease outbreak, caused everybody to basically stop taking the measles vaccine. 5,000 people got measles, 83 people died, 79 of them were children. There's new reporting from NBC today that I just read, and it really shot a chill down my spine. He's got like an informatics guy who's also an anti-vaxxer but does the data. And there's like email traffic where they're saying this could be a good research opportunity. So again, withholding life-saving medicine from people that are deemed expendable by, frankly, white people in power. When my dad opposed this, it was 50 years ago, right? A little more than 50 years ago. And when I thought about my dad's courage, when I think about the kind of arc of the American experiment, I really truly believed that we had transcended that period of time. And the idea that we would put someone as a secretary of HHS with real authority here, real raw power to essentially conduct another experiment to see how the disease process, rubella, mumps, measles, polio, progresses through our society. So this is not like, there are a lot of nominees that I'm going to oppose, but like their power is attenuated. Their power is constrained by, statutory law or us. But this guy's got raw power to basically tank vaccines. And this isn't about like one's view about, COVID mandates or the general response of the federal or state or county government around COVID, where I think there's plenty of room for disagreement. This is about stuff that like 95% of the people are like, no, I don't want polio back. I don't want rubella back. I don't want measles or mumps back. But that is literally what's at stake with this vote. So
what do you say to your Republican colleagues, though? I mean, they know this, like they know polio is bad. This is public health issues that can kill their family members, can kill their kids, their grandkids. And, the Senate's supposed to be a collegial body. You're in the caucus room and they're sitting there. Oh, what are you doing today? Oh, we're just going to allow polio to happen today. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, you like these people who you probably, a lot of them you respect. There may be some, who knows, but a lot of them, these are in theory, intelligent, thoughtful people who became senators of their state who are like, let's give this anti-vaxxer guy who doesn't believe in modern medicine control of this all. And what do you say to them?
Well, I mean, I won't tell you exactly like my private conversations with members, but I think, look, it's a 53-47 Senate. So if the Republicans want to confirm him, they can. But it also means that if there are 4 Republicans that find this guy just too objectionable, then it's done. And I'd also make the argument, like just from a partisan standpoint, if you care about the success of the Republican Party, not my high priority, but if I'm a Republican in good standing, I'm thinking, yeah, I might incur the wrath of Donald John Trump for voting no on this guy, but I don't want to own a measles outbreak at a public school in my community. And I don't want the Republican Party to own this guy. He's just too nuts. He's bad for our brand. So, I am still, I don't know how this is going to land, but all I can do is, and to your point, like, this really isn't a partisan issue. I mean, it's sort of taken on a partisan valence because it's Donald Trump's nominee, but like, I just never believed that we were going to be in a position we're not arguing about COVID again. We're arguing about polio. Like, even people who I know who are like vaccine skeptical or have a view about like, shutting down schools or wearing masks or whatever the hell we did right or wrong during the COVID pandemic, like, most of them are still not rooting for a rubella outbreak at, an elementary school in their neighborhood. And so I am still hopeful, and maybe that's my downfall, but I am still optimistic that cooler heads will prevail and this guy will not be in charge of our public health system.
I've been referring to Donald Trump as a WMD, distraction. Throw everything all over the place. Look at this shiny object, so we don't focus on prices aren't lower, housing's not more affordable, egg prices are going up. He hasn't done anything with healthcare. There's no peace in Ukraine in 24 hours like he promised, and now he's saying a bunch of weird things. Xi Jinping should negotiate it. We'll see what Putin wants to do. I'll write a social media post in all caps, and maybe that'll scare whoever. I don't even know what he's even doing. But where's the distraction, and what do we take seriously? In the past 24 hours, he's talked about getting rid of FEMA. He's talked about annexing Canada. And then the MAGA Republicans have talked about making him a dictator for life and changing the Constitution to allow him to be president.
So let me take,
what do we focus?
Let me take them kind of one by one, but also hopefully give you a unifying theory of how to look at this. I think, annexing Greenland, eliminating FEMA, I forgot what the third thing, all of those require a change in federal law, right? And allowing Trump to run for a third term requires a change in constitutional law. And I actually took it as a kind of good sign that to me, that's a concession. I thought they were just going to argue that he was permitted to do it and just like take a run at that. But they're at least admitting that the Constitution as it is currently written makes him a lame duck. So I was sort of on some level relieved to see they weren't taking the absolutely out of control, insane position. They want to amend the Constitution, God bless. That takes a little bit of time and will not pass. But just remember, he's not king, right? Yes, the court system has at least been partially corrupted over the last 10 or so years, but it still exists. It's still a co-equal branch of government, and he's not going to win in court, as we saw with birthright citizenship when he's just flatly wrong. We can't rely on the courts every time. We can't rely on the legislature every time. We can't rely on the bureaucracy every time. We're going to lose a few. But we did not just install a dictator. He's a president, and he's the lead person in one of our co-equal branches of government. And I'm just a little bit, I would just caution people against catastrophizing. It's one thing to be alarmed and vigilant, and I am alarmed and I am vigilant. It is another thing to sort of do the all is lost. Don't you understand? He's got total immunity and he's going to just do whatever he wants. So like in the distraction category, Greenland, Canada, get rid of FEMA, all of that is just bullshit and can't be done. There's no like bill to be introduced to where any of that's going to happen. But where he has raw authority, I think is where we need to be most concerned. So on tariffs, he's got raw authority. There's really nothing the legislative branch or the courts could do about that. He can raise your prices and appears to be willing to do so right away. On immigration policy, he's got very, very strong authorities in federal law. And so to me, the places to be most worried are the places where he does not have to be constrained by us in the Congress or by the courts. And so, sorting some of that out on a sort of like hour by hour basis is a little challenging, but that's going to be the name of the game here. And I think what people need is sort of to strike that balance between everything is falling apart on one side, or everything is going to be just fine on the other side. It's definitely somewhere in between. And this is a little bit older than my generation, but there's that Jackson Browne song, and I'm going to misquote it, but it's like, someone asks you if it's going to be all right. It's a little soon to say. It is a little soon to say. We've got a lot of work to do. It's worth remembering that we had a couple of legislative and court and then electoral victories in the first Trump term. And there's no reason to think that we can't have another series of electoral and court and legislative victories in this second Trump term. Is it going to be rough? It's absolutely going to be rough. But we, the people, and we Democrats in elected positions are not powerless, and we just have to find our moments of leverage and exercise that power.
Senator Brian Schatz, first time here on the MeidasTouch Network. We hope you come back. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers this month. And special thanks to Senator Brian Schatz for joining us. Have a good one, everyone.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 750,000 followers.